Hello, everyone. Today, I'm going to be ranking 2024 pop albums. So these are albums that are from artists that I frequently talk about on this channel, the pop girlies. It's going to be mostly women featured on this list. There will be a few men thrown in there. Anyone who's pop/pop adjacent. There will also be some alternative stuff, a little bit, that indie stuff thrown in there. It's a little bit of a mixed bag, but for the most part, it's going to be some of the big names in pop music. And 2024 was honestly a pretty prolific year. We had a lot of heavy hitters drop records, but we also had a lot of flops. So not everyone came out on top by any means. There were a lot of big comebacks that kind of epically bombed. And I do think that, album sales in general, it's looking like very few artists are immune to declining sales. Even, some heavy hitters like Dua Lipa, who we thought was pretty stable, had a really kind of lackluster performance commercially this year, even though I actually think the album's pretty good. One of the reasons I wanted to do this video is because there were actually quite a few albums that came out this year that I didn't end up filming a review for. And I kind of regret not filming reviews for them. I mean, it's hard. I'm never going to cover every album I feel like I should on this channel. It's just really hard to balance, having the time to do so with, the wherewithal to do it. I came up with this idea as a way to sort of catch a bunch of projects I just never got to talk about on this channel. As well as, of course, going over some of the albums I have reviewed on this channel. So yeah, it'll be a fun sort of way to recap 2024 in pop music. Now, I am still going to be making my top 40 songs of the year video. That video is still coming. I know I'm a little late with that one this year. Time just got away from me. December has just been flying by. So that video will be coming, but it'll be after Christmas. I'm going to get it up before New Year's, though. Before New Year's Eve. That video might come out the day before New Year's Eve, but it will come out before New Year's. I'm going to try my best. But for now, we're going to be doing this video. So let me pull up here TierMaker. Haven't used that in a little while. I've created a TierMaker list. And again, forgive me, there will be some pop-up ads. I'm going to try and make that. This thing is always a little difficult to use properly. But as you can see, we've got a bunch of albums here. I don't know how many, 50? I think I've got about 50 albums here that we're going to be talking about, albums and EPs. And I was just basically trying to pull any sort of album that came out from an artist that I'm somewhat familiar with and that I listened to at least some of the project, if not all of the project. Most of these albums, I listened to the entire thing, but I will preface this by saying there are a couple albums on here that I did not hear every single note of. And I know that might sound a little bit like, why are you reviewing it? Well, this isn't really a review per se. This is me going off of my sort of initial reactions to the snippets that I heard from the songs on iTunes. Which is a way that I like to sample records before I add them on Apple Music. I go into iTunes and I listen to the snippets. It's just a great way to get an idea of, like, is this song worth my time? And so there are a couple projects in here I felt like including that I didn't end up listening to every song in full length, which forgive me. I'll tell you the ones when I get to them. We're actually going to start out with one of them right here. But let me go through the categories first. So at the very bottom, I tried to come up with clever titles reflecting 2024 pop music. So we have the Tortured Ears Department. Now, before the Swifties come for me, I can automatically tell you that do not worry, Taylor Swift is not going in this category. I am using the title of the album in jest to refer to a category that I do not personally believe pertains to that album, okay? I've seen people make that joke about the project. I do not think that the Tortured Poets Department deserves to be, put in the DF tier, which this is. I just liked the idea of using it for this, to talk about other projects that probably, and to be honest, I think only one or two are really going to go there. A lot of crappy music, I just don't engage with. I feel like I have a pretty good ear for not interested. Not every category has a snappy, fun title, a meme title. Needs improvement, self-explanatory. I mean, it's not great. Probably not going to want to listen to it again or check it out again. But, I respect it, the Vanessa Hudgens. I'll always never live that video clip down. She'll never live that down. We have Indifferent, and these are the records that, I'm just like, it's fine. Maybe it's not really for me. And so I feel bad passing judgment on it. Even though, again, most of the albums I have put in this list are more albums that I think are geared towards my taste, at least in genre, maybe not in the actual execution. We have a category that is kind of pop culture, but you might not recognize it because it's not from music. It's nice, it's different, it's unusual. For any Kath and Kim fans out there, yeah, I had to do it. I know it's, again, like a little bit not themed to music, but I just was like, I was thinking when I got into Kath and Kim, I was like, I have to use that as a category on a TierMaker list. And so, yeah, these are albums that are perfectly fine. They're not, anything I'd phone home about, but I enjoy and I respect. I have a slightly more positive view of than, the indifferent category. Okay, and then we get into the yes and category. I'm using that to reference the Ariana Grande song, basically saying, this is a bop, and anything else? No, there's not much more to be said. These are pretty good records. These are albums that I enjoy and probably would recommend to other people. But they're below the second best tier, which is Bumpin' That, themed to 360 and 365 from Charlie XCX. I had to make it green for Brat. This was definitely the year of Brat. And so Bumpin' That are going to be songs that are pretty damn good. Okay, they're going to be songs that I've been listening to a lot this year. Well, albums, I should say, that I've been listening to a lot this year that deserve to be in that category. And then at the very top, we have Godly. Again, very self-explanatory. These are the cream of the crop, the best albums of the year. Albums that, if I were the Grammys, would win or contend for the Album of the Year award. But the scammies, you know how they roll. So let's get started. Now, these albums, they popped out on this list in a completely random order. So there's no rhyme or reason to the order that we are going through these projects. And so the first project actually we have is Raul Alejandro. Please correct me if I'm pronouncing that name wrong. But he is an urban Latin pop star that has been on my radar for quite some time. And I will say this, after skimming this record through, snippets, this is the one that's impressed me the most so far. Cosa Nuestra, I believe it's called. And so there's definitely some bops on this record. It's fun, urban pop Latino fare. Not too different from, Bad Bunny and J Balvin and all of those. But I think Raul Alejandro is the most interesting one out of that bunch for me. So I'm going to, at the end of the day, just put it in, it's nice, it's different, it's unusual. There's one song, Pasa Porte. Definitely a bop. I was considering it for my best songs of the year video. I don't want to spoil my best songs of the year video, but there are some amazing jams on this record, okay? Some very interesting production, great kind of world sound. Now, I do have the Tortured Poets, both versions, because it's a two-part album. I have them split up for this list. So this is actually going to be the anthology that I'm ranking here. And so the anthology, I think, for me, is the stronger part of the Tortured Poets department. I think once the anthology released, I was like, oh, here's where some of the better songs were. However, as I'm thinking about this, I'm debating between Bumpin' That and Yes and. And I know, Swifties again, I'm sorry if I'm a little bit, a little harsh on Taylor sometimes. I do think that, Tortured Poets Department is a decent album. Do I necessarily think it's Grammy Album of the Year quality? I don't know. The anthology gives some meat to that idea. And that's not to say there aren't some good songs on the first half of the record as well. But as for right now, I think I'm going to put it in Yes and I think that's a pretty fair spot for me to place it. We have Swedish alternative pop star Jonna Lee, her album Close Your Eyes, which of course had a Swedish counterpart called Blund. These are getting ranked basically together, even though I'm more familiar with the English version, obviously. Definitely, I think deserves to go in the yes and category. If you've seen my review, you will know that I was a little bit lukewarm on this record. I do think it left a lot to be desired. I wanted something a little stronger. But it was still, if you like Yona Lee, I think there's something there that will have staying power. Some of the songs have grown on me, but it's no Everyone Afraid to Be Forgotten. We have Harlequin. I think a lot of people, including Little Monsters, kind of forgot that this project came out. And it's so sad to say, but it seems like the entire film industry has been trying to forget about Joker 2. Joker 2, did that happen? Oh, I didn't know that came out this year. Lady Gaga, she's probably trying to forget that it came out this year. Goodness gracious, did that crash and burn. Well, let's just say Harlequin definitely was one of the better things to come from that whole marketing campaign. However, at the end of the day, well, I don't know. It's not my genre of music. It's jazz standards, a tinge of, kind of blues and jazz, I mean, a touch of country blues. Happy Mistake is incredible. But do I feel like it should go above It's Nice, It's Different, It's Unusual? Because at the end of the day, it is kind of a bit of a safe project. I mean, it's mostly covers, so I feel like I can't rate it too highly because these aren't songs she wrote herself, with the exception of Happy Mistake and Folie à Deux. So, yeah, I think for that reason I have to dock a few points. Speaking of another artist that was super lauded to make a debut this year that everyone, including the artists themselves, completely forgot about after it happened, Normani and Dopamine. I still can't believe we got this album this year. I really didn't think that Normani was actually ever going to come through for us. I mean, I suppose I was a little bit more confident than, like, let's say Rihanna coming back, that Normani would debut. But now that she's debuted, I don't know. The anvil is not hot. The sparks are not there anymore. However, I do have to say the album has some, strong R&B, kind of classic 2000s, late 90s R&B tracks. There's great rhythm to some of the songs. She has a great ear for melody and rhythm. And I do think that, if she'd given it the proper promotion it deserved, I don't know why she chose not to promote it. I don't know if that was entirely her decision or if it was partly the record label. But at the end of the day, I still feel like I kind of have to just put it in It's Nice, It's Different, It's Unusual. Only because there's only a couple songs that I feel are on rotation, after having listened initially. Nelly Furtado, speaking of a comeback that I was so super hyped for this year, and I am so glad that it finally happened. Nelly Furtado, her seventh studio album, came 7 years after her last. And I do think it delivered what it needed to. It could have done more. Could have been a little bit more next level, a little bit more cutting edge, a little slicker. But at the end of the day, it's a Nelly Furtado pop record that I think the streets were clamoring for, that has a little bit of everything that makes Nelly Furtado such a cool cornucopia of pop music. It's got Latin influences, it's got urban influences, it's got, folk, piano ballad influence, soul influence, dance, house influence. There's a little bit of everything, and S.G. Lewis brings that extra pop polish to a lot of the songs that I really like, along with Wonder Girl, T-. Timbaland is almost in the spirit of some of those songs, even though he's not involved. And so for all of that, I'm going to give it yes and. I think this was a solid comeback for her, but obviously one that did not do anything on the charts. I don't think any of us anticipated it would. Unfortunately, Nelly Furtado has been in the Kia asylum for quite a long time now. One could argue for at least 15 years, and I don't know if she's ever going to unfortunately come out. It's a shame. It's a shame. Luce will always be that girl. But speaking of someone who's had a very good year, Ariana Grande, yes, I did use what I think should be the official album cover for Eternal Sunshine. I don't like any of the other covers. There's one other cover that I'm okay with. but especially the close-up of just her eye. I think that's an absolutely abysmal album cover. Not on my phone. Not on my phone. Uh, the more I've kind of gone back to this record, the more I realize how brilliant it is. I do genuinely think that this is Ariana Grande's strongest, most cohesive record she's ever put out. And for that, it's got to go and bump in that. This definitely deserves to be nominated for Album of the Year, but unfortunately, it did not get an Album of the Year nomination at the Grammys. It got Best Pop Vocal, but that's something I think that's more in Ariana's wheelhouse. We want that AOTY nomination. This album deserved it, but I don't know. I don't know. Ariana really played on this, really came through with this album, really came through. I mean, it's a little slight at first, but once you dive into the melodies and you give the production and the story of the record a chance, it just kind of creeps up on you from behind. These melodies are kind of ingenious. And it's a great, I think, blend of her more R&B sensibilities and her going back into a more pop leaning direction. It is definitely kind of veering more into white girl territory, where Positions and Thank You Next was going, into the Blackiana era. But now with Wicked, we're doing a pivot. And, say what you will about cultural appropriation and all of that. That is a conversation. But Eternal Sunshine, I think, is a blend that really marries, all of Ariana's influences together pretty well. Luke Hemmings put out an EP. He's the Australian lead frontman from 5 Seconds of Summer. I was never into 5 Seconds of Summer, but when Luke Hemmings had his debut album in 2021, my ears perked up. This is his second effort, but it's just an EP, and it's called Boy. There's only really 2 songs that I think are strong, but for what it's worth, I enjoyed it. And so, I think a lot of songs are going to go in this category, but it's nice, it's different, it's unusual. He's also Australian, so Kath and Kim is an Australian show. Gotta put it in that category there. Okay. Now I have to represent my girl Aurora. I have a shirt from her What Happened to the Earth Part 2 North America tour that she just concluded. I saw her in Philadelphia at the beginning of December. This was my second time seeing Aurora live. It was truly an incredible experience. And her album, What Happened to the Heart, I don't want to spoil my 40 Best Songs of the Year video, but I'm probably just going to do it here. It's my album of the year. All right. What Happened to the Heart is just a transcendent body of work. Okay. It's going and godly. I know I am a little bit of an Aurora stan, but I actually don't really like The Gods We Can Touch that much. I haven't found myself coming back to that record. It's definitely her weakest. That's not to say there aren't great songs, but I don't know. It didn't have that staying power that this record has. This record has that special sauce, and it is so expansive and so experimental and so overarching, with such deep, dark themes that are explored in the lyrics and so prescient for the times that we live in. It feels so urgently necessary as a body of work, and so artistic and so divine and gorgeous when it needs to be, which is something I want from Aurora. And so it has a bit of everything that I just want in an Aurora record. From, sad harps in a forest to raving out in a sweaty, nightclub, it just takes you through the gambit. It's just absolutely divine, and seeing her live is such a treat. So Magdalena Bay started popping up everywhere this year for her record Imaginal Disc. I gotta be honest with you, the only song that I think really latches on to me from this record is Image. So there are a couple that in the snippets were intriguing, but nothing that seemed that interesting that I had to listen to in full. But I recognize that interesting, alternative pop stuff can still make a splash. And for the music video alone of Image, I gotta be honest, it's still a pretty solid thing. But I hate to say it, but I'm putting it in indifferent. I feel bad being negative to the project because it's such a beloved, sort of indie pop, gay Twitter fave of the year. But it's a little too it didn't quite strike the chords that I'm looking for. But, maybe I do need a little more time with it. Jackie Evancho put out an EP this year called Sola. For those who don't know Jackie Evancho from America's Got Talent, if anyone remembers her, well, she's now fully a full-fledged pop star. But of course, she's flopping. She's not really marketed. She's not really well known. It is what it is. She did have her classical crossover thing, but now she's writing her own music. And this was one of her first projects that was entirely original compositions. And it had a little bit of a classic rock lean in some of the songs. And it was perfectly fine. Again, a very serviceable EP. It's going to go in, it's nice, it's different. I think, Behind My Eyes is a really kind of sultry bop. The Greatest Love is London Grammar's, I believe it's their third studio album, if I'm not mistaken, or is it their fourth? Maybe it's their fourth. I think it's their fourth. I got into London Grammar on their second album, A New Americana. Was that what it's called? I can't remember. Can't remember what it was called. But The Greatest Love is, I think, even stronger. There's a couple songs that are so sweeping and just take you off your feet. Shout out to LA. That may or may not be making an appearance. Again, I'm trying not to, on my Best Songs of the Year video, I'm trying not to spoil it, but definitely going in yes and. Definitely going in yes and. And then, speaking of another comeback, I was so thrilled to see this year, Cascada. Cascada came back with, albeit a ton of covers, not something I would have loved to have seen originally, although if you look at Cascada's catalog, they have done a lot of covers on their previous records. But this was purely 70s, 60s, 80s disco that she put her classic Cascada spin on, although there is one original track. Again, I have to dock points for it not being original, so I am at the end of the day going to give it it's nice, it's different, but if these were original songs, it would be higher. But she can really, Natalie Horler can just chomp up a beat, chomp up a Euro house beat like nothing else. And we all love her for it. So, I mean, hearing her do Disco Inferno, Murder on the dance, these are, Got to Be Real. Like, this is just too classic. Studio 24 is the record. Gwen Stefani came back this year, and I don't think anyone was excited when they saw the album cover and heard the first single. I actually tweeted something, and it was wired. Gwen Stefani, tired. Gwen Shelton. Oh, Blake Shelton, what have you done to our girl? What have you done to our girl? This is going to be our first needs improvement. There's a couple nice little, folksy country, Kelly Clarkson-esque songs, Pretty. Shout out to Reminders. Even Swallow Up My Tears. There's some, serviceable sort of adult contemporary, country pop standards. But wouldn't it be nice if she went fully into the camp pop again? Wouldn't that be nice? It's been over almost a decade, since her last record. So it is great to see her come back. But this isn't exactly the comeback we were looking for. Now, I have two art albums by the British alternative folk band Aquilo. I have talked about them on this channel. They're very they're very kind of indie. But they released two records this year. The first is A Quiet Invitation to a Hard Conversation. And the second is You Should Get Some Sleep. That one actually just came out a couple weeks ago. The other one came out in August. But I do view them sort of as one project. So I am probably going to rank them together. And I will say, Aquilo, they always deliver some really crepuscular, moody, atmospheric, kind of whimsical ballads that Tom Higgins' vocals just like butter kind of whisk you away in the night. I will always be swept away by their piano work. It's not as immediate of a project, and it is kind of experimental, but I think both of these together are strong enough to, I think, at least go in the yes and category. Because, I mean, even though I don't love every song, as a body of work, it, doesn't overstay its welcome. It feels like a very strong, artistic statement. Robert Alphonse of Trust released an album called Performance. This is a very, his music is always very psychedelic, very dreamwave, very, very euphoric in the beats, but melancholy in tone and in key. And I think it's such a brilliant pairing, and I love his vocals, even though they can be so uncanny. And so for me, it's definitely a strong performance, I would say, for the year. Soon and All at Once are my favorites. Paris Hilton. Paris Hilton came back after 18 years. Paris Hilton gave us her second studio album, Infinite Icon. And you know what? I feel like normally you would think I would put this, and normally I would before listening to it, I would think that the best it could get is Indifferent. Because, Paris Hilton, she's, got probably some good producers on speed dial, but is there much here? Is there much going on upstairs? But I gotta be honest with you, I kind of liked Infinite Icon. I gotta be real. It's nice. It's different. It's certainly not unusual. Um, Bad Bitch Academy kind of goes hard. I'm sorry, kind of goes hard. I don't know. Some people I think would consider this and kind of Megan Trainor kind of music, and Megan Trainor does feature on a song. But sometimes that Barbie kind of basic bubblegum pop is still so infectious. You just can't. It's like, eating like really, really delicious like candy that is bad for you. You gotta pick out sometimes on some junk food. But there is also like a bit of depth and maturity on this record. She sings about having ADHD in a very kind of corny way, but it's something. What else are we gonna expect from our girl? Okay, there's some introspection there, and of course, Sia does her thing on this record too. Helps out with some of the production. Coldplay. I am including deluxe editions in these albums, even though the covers may not all be the deluxe covers. For the most part, I am thinking of the deluxe when I rank these, by the way. Moon Music, which also has the Full Moon edition. It's definitely Coldplay, kind of on autopilot. It's a little stronger than their last record, but I can't get it any more than it's nice, it's different, it's unusual. I really do wish that Coldplay would feel like a band again. And this is coming from a pop fan. This is coming from a pop synthesizer loving fan. I really wish Coldplay actually felt like it was more than just Chris Martin, a piano, and Max Martin. The Martins. It should be called the Martins. We got Chris and we got Max. And that's it. The other the other band members, God bless them, can't remember their names off the top of my head. I used to know them. But that's the thing. No one knows them anymore because they just barely feature. I will say shout out to Chris Martin for the All My Love music video that just recently dropped featuring Dick Van Dyke. That man is 99 years old. The video was to commemorate his 99th birthday. I am so in awe of how good he looks for his age. I think it was recently filmed, and it's such a blessing that he's still with us and also so animated. I was on an interview with Jimmy Kimmel. He sounds great. Oh, what an amazing kind of heartwarming thing to see towards the end of this year. I completely forgot this came out this year. Slut Pop Miami by Kim Petras. Kind of an in one year out the other project. Definitely deserves to go in the Library of Congress. This is an archival recording this is a recording that needs to be archived for posterity in the hallowed halls of Washington for sure. Yeah, is it bad if I put it in indifferent? Because there's some bops. For what it is, I'm going to put it in indifferent because you know what? Kim Petras is not trying to be anything better than she is. And I do feel like people give her a lot of flack. She just wants to make fun slut pop, okay? I know the producer she works with, well, we got someone who's real catching flack for that coming up. Next we have Jesse McCartney. Jesse McCartney came back. No one cares. No one cares. He came back with an EP this year called All's Well. And it has an absolutely atrocious song about making a girl pregnant with Young Gravy or whatever the frick his name is. I mean, it's bottom of the barrel TikTok algorithm baiting that song. But if you get past that, there's like 4 other songs that are a great slice of sort of, all of his past records. There's even a really kind of emotional ballad, The Well, which is definitely probably one of the most introspective songs I've heard Jesse McCartney put out since like 2006. So, it's like kind of nice to see him kind of going back in that lane a little bit. So I don't know. I'm still gonna put it in indifferent because that of it still kind of weighs it down. But shout out to Jesse. He's still doing his thing. Another EP. We've got a lot of EPs this year. Tuvelo, and S.G. Lewis put out an EP for Pride called Heat. There's only really two songs that I think are truly on fire, and that is the title song and then Desire. Desire is so alluring and so infectious, and it's a real great 90s clubhouse banger with an extended mix that we don't get so much these days. It reminds me of like Cahill edits. If you know Cahill, the DJ, when he would do his edits and remixes of certain tracks, especially Cascada, it was like, oh, chef's kiss. And so I do think it's a great euphoric, blissed out, kind of sultry, sexy dance confection that deserves to be in it. At the very least, it's nice, it's different, it's unusual. You know what? I'm gonna put it in yes and. I'm gonna put it in yes and because I feel like Desire alone raises the bar. Speaking of raising the bar, Cowboy Carter, Beyonce's Act 2. I've been seeing a lot of Beyonce fans or pop fans saying Act 3 is coming next year. If it's coming next year, I guarantee you it's going to be in the second half of the year. Maybe I'll be wrong. I'll eat my words. But I find it really hard to believe that we are going to have a shorter gap between Act 1 and Act 2 and then Act 2 and Act 3. I still think Act 3 is coming in 2026. I don't think Beyonce's in too much of a hurry to get these finished. I mean, why would she? There's like 25 songs on here. This is a full-length morsel that we still need a lot of time to digest. Some of the songs took so long for me to really get behind. Two Hands to Heaven, I wasn't a huge fan of it when it first came out. But now I think it's like one of the most brilliant songs she's ever made. I mean, it's really interesting how, some of the ones I really loved at the beginning have sort of lowered a little bit and the others have risen. I'm not saying everything on here is a masterpiece, but look, if we're talking about Album of the Year and we're talking about something that actually is nominated at the Grammys, sorry, Aurora, when are the Grammys going to take Aurora seriously? When are the Grammys going to take anything seriously? But if we're talking about AOTY, I Ain't Win, well, it's about your damn time, girl. And, Renaissance maybe is a decimal point stronger of a body of work, but Cowboy Carter is still elite. I will die on this hill. I know some people don't like it, but it's going in godly for me. This should win Album of the Year. There's only really one other album that I will accept, even though it wouldn't be my choice, and we're coming up on it. But if I had any say, and I probably will talk about the Grammys once they happen, it's got to be Cowboy Carter. Speaking of another huge successful album from this year that also did get a Album of the Year nomination, we've got Hit Me Hard and Soft by Billie Eilish. I think I will give it bump in that because at the end of the day, I think Billie is just such a seasoned, even though she's so young, a seasoned, mature, interesting artist that always is going to serve something fresh, always going to be giving us quality. I don't love every song on this project, and I wish I had reviewed it when it came out, and it was largely due to conflict that I didn't have time to do it. But I will be honest with you, there was a part of me that kind of didn't know what to say about the project. I felt like I was like, yeah, it's good. We all know that, but I wasn't really that compelled to sit down and explain why. I don't know if Billie's kind of starting to get a little old to me because some of the songs, I'm like, some of the songs are interesting and a little unique for her, but there's some of them are kind of retreading Sonic territory we've seen her do before. Shout out to Blue, though. Blue is the best album closer she's ever had. And I also love that the album isn't like super long, even though it does have some long songs. It's only 10. And there's no deluxe. She's not doing any of that deluxe crap. We're getting a lot of deluxes. I mean, what is... we'll talk about that in a sec. We'll talk about SZA. Speaking of deluxes, I'm actually going to skip ahead a little bit here because I feel like I do need to sort of rank both the Brat albums. We all know what Brat is, right? Charlie XCX's projects. I do have them separated because I do feel like they're almost two separate bodies of work, even though they are sort of one package. I am going to put, bumping that for the OG Brat. I think the OG Brat is such a brilliant sort of modern pop classic. This is pop music today. This is not pop music necessarily of 2010. That was Teenage Dream. This is not pop music of 1999. That was Baby One More Time. And this is not pop music of, 1987. That was Whitney Houston's album. This is pop music of 2024. Especially like more kind of, drug induced, party pop music. This is where we're at. And, sometimes my ears are like, good God, good God. And sometimes I really don't love what I'm singing along to, because the glorification of drug use, even in the title, bumping that, I want it to be about bumping a song, bumping the beat. But we all know what she's kind of inferring, and I don't love that a lot of children are singing these songs. I wouldn't like adults really singing about cocaine use, but, anywho, I'm going to get off my prudish high horse here. Charlie is a little much for me. I think Charlie would eat me alive. I don't want to go partying with Charlie. Girl, I like your music, and I would get down on the dance floor, but I don't know if I could survive partying with you, girl. I don't know if I could do it. I'm too much of a homebody. And then the remix album is just a little less. I think most people agree that, there's only a handful of remixes that I think are elevated. I think the only remixes that are better than the OG are like Talk Talk and Girl So Confusing. I think we all know Girl So Confusing is so much more iconic because of Lorde featuring on it. That's such a interesting conversational sort of collab that they had. But for the most part, I actually don't mind the Apple remix. I think it's pretty good. I don't hate the 360 and 365 remixes. Maybe the 365 one is a little more interesting because I think hip hop, and Robin, they go well on the beat. But Shy Girl does her thing with 365 too. But Von Dutch, I love Addison Rae, but I'm sorry, that Von Dutch remix is horrendous, and I think Von Dutch is an incredible song. So, I don't know, some of the remixes are lessened, some are elevated, but overall, it's not quite to the level of the OG Brat. Speaking of someone who wanted to be Brat, but didn't quite make the mark, Camila Cabello, CXOXO. How kind do I want to be today? I don't know. There's a case to be made for Tortured Ears Department. If we were ranking, I love it. No question. One of the worst songs of 2024. I'm so sorry. I know a lot of Camila fans defend that song. I just can't. It's not my kind of music. It's just not. It's too mumble rappy, too SoundCloud rappery for me. There are some songs on here that are fine. 20 something, Pretty When I Cry is a bop. The Deluxe has a couple fun songs. It is very much what she described. It's late nights in the summer in Miami, shaking ass on Collins. Okay, this is what the album is. But I'm afraid I'm gonna have to put it in needs improvement. I'm sorry. Radical Optimism. Speaking of someone who also gave us summer vibes, this might be my favorite Dua Lipa record, but don't say that too loud because the pop police will execute you. Yes, I am not a fan of her debut record. I don't really love a lot of the songs besides a few standouts. Future Nostalgia is fine. I just think it's a tad overrated. Radical Optimism, I was drinking the Kool-Aid that she was serving, okay? I was drinking the mojito that was being served on the shores of, Tijuana, okay, or wherever, Amalfi Coast or something. The vibes of this record is giving very Italian, Mediterranean, hot Italian girl summer, hot Albanian girl summer. It's fun kind of Europop. It's fun Europop, okay? It's got some really catchy songs. Although I do agree that, the album campaign sort of pivoted a little bit. So it'll go in yes and. It's a decent project and nowhere near as bad as some people say. Now, Ali X. Ali X is a phenomenal artist that I really should get into more. I only checked out by snippets. her recent album, Girl with No Face. And I will say, Off with Her Tits is just one of those songs that is undeniable. Undeniable. However, at the end of the day, because I wasn't too drawn into too many other songs, I am gonna have to just put it in indifferent for me. I feel really bad. It's just not everything was hitting in the snippets. There's only like 2 songs that I've listened to in full from this record because the snippets were interesting enough. Glorious by Glorilla. Yeah, I don't know why I listened to this album in whole. I think it was because I was driving at the time. Speaking of an album I should have snippeted instead, you know what? I will, at the end of the day, just put it in indifferent because, it's not for me. I'm not the demographic for this music. But, there's a hoe in me that wants to come out to this music. All right? That's all I'm gonna say. I mean, I don't know. I was feeling it. I was feeling it. Um, I don't know why Harlequin is in here twice. My bad. I always mess something up. Oof. All right, y'all. We got our first tortured ears department. Ice Spice Y2K. Oh, is that controversial? Do I need to say anything else? It's not for me. Not for me, fam. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I listened to the snippets and one song full length, and I just couldn't do it. I couldn't do it, y'all. I couldn't do it. This is her debut, and she's not really the hot thing she was a year ago anymore. So I don't know if Ice Spice may have eclipsed, maybe past her high point. We'll see. But yeah, it wasn't doing it. You know what? This is gonna bug me, so I'm just gonna put the other Harlequin up here. Harlequin's up here twice. All right, we've got Halsey, the Great Impersonator. This is an album that is not for everyone. It's definitely not for Pitchfork, but it's an album for depressed people. It's an album for the depressed girlies. It's interesting. When I was making my best songs of the year list, I actually did sort of have a hard time. I was like, "Is there really only one song?" I shouldn't spoil it. I shouldn't spoil it. But all I'll say is I was a little bit like, maybe this is an album that is just better as a package than individual songs, with the exception of 1 or 2. Because on their own, I'm not sure if any of these songs merit that much attention. But when you hear the project together, it does something. And so I don't know, I honestly kind of want to put it in bumping that just because of the meaning of this record, what it means, what it represents as a bit of a middle finger to Pitchfork, especially since Pitchfork put things like I Love It on their best songs of the year list. Good God.
Has the world gone mad? Or have I?
Good God. So yeah, I'm gonna be kind to it. I'm gonna be kind to it. Speaking of another album I might be a little kinder to than I probably should be, 143 by Katy Perry, which I'm kind of glad I waited to film this so late in the year because this past Friday, we got the deluxe edition with 4 new tracks. No Tears for New Year's is the strongest of the new 4 songs. I Woke Up is kind of cute as well. Yeah, it's tough. Katy Perry really just doesn't make it easier for herself with the Dr. Luke stuff. And also the fact that Woman's World is the cringiest message statement song that you could make in pop music today. The cringiest, I almost want to call it faux feminist because of the implications of how that song was made. And also some of the imagery in the video. It's so cliche. It's just not so kind of counterintuitive in some ways. That it really detracts, but there are some harmless club moments on the record that I can't deny. And so at the end of the day, I think it's nice, it's different, it's unusual, is probably the highest I can go with the accolades. I know a lot of people would want it lower. Um, is that a little crazy to put it there? Should it be in needs improvement? Because it does need improvement. It does need improvement. You know what? I hate to say it, but I think that was too high. That was too high. What am I doing? Oh, speaking of, we might have someone giving company to Ice Spice. Imagine Dragons. Whew, I mean, we don't want Coldplay to go this low. At least Coldplay hasn't gone this bottom of the barrel. Do you know, I'm not always, a prude when it comes to pop music. Like I said, I like a catchy melody, a fun hook, something that, you can bop your head to. And Dan Reynolds is so fine to look at. Whew, whew, he gets me hot and bothered. But no, no, thank you. This, you can do so much better than whatever that was. Jennifer Lopez. Speaking of an artist whose narrative overshadowed the music, um, I think it's really unfair to say that this is a terrible record. I'm gonna flat out say it. I think, this is actually not even J Lo's worst album. I think this is way stronger than AKA, possibly even stronger than Love, possibly even stronger than Love. This is up there with when she was at her peak. Not too off the mark from that quality of music. But the narrative, I mean, it's been up and down. Sometimes we're siding with her more, other times we're not. She's got a mean girl kind of narrative though, triumphing in the media, and so it's just really hard. People are not empathetic to her struggle. This rich, very rich, successful multimillionaire and her struggles. Why don't you watch her documentaries, her multiple documentaries, and her multiple horrendous Netflix movies? But yes, I did review the movie that came out on Amazon, and spoiler for my movies of 2024 video, but definitely the worst movie I've seen in 2024. But you know what? It's not the worst movie I've ever seen. All right, that's not fair. I think J Lo, still has a little bit of verve and spirit, and her music reflects that. Even if this is her swan song, I could definitely see her throwing in the towel. Especially since she had to cancel the tour. So I'm gonna put it in it's nice, it's different, it's unusual, because at the end of the day, there are some bops. There is some, interesting kind of storytelling going on that is quite a few steps above stuff she was doing in the late 2010s and the late 2000s and early 2010s. Jess Glynne, such a powerhouse UK vocalist. I don't know, Jess Glynne is sort of taking Jessie J off the map. Where is Jessie J? What happened to Jessie J? Well, anyway, we've got Jess Glynne's, I think this is her third studio album. I only sampled it and only like 3 songs stood out. But those 3 songs, whew, Easy, Chair, come on, pop perfection. UK pop perfection. We got a real pop princess here that doesn't get her flowers enough. I don't know. It's tough because I only like a couple songs, but I do feel like maybe I should. We're dead even here. I'm gonna just put it in yes and. I'm gonna do it for Easy alone. Justin Timberlake. Speaking of someone who's had a hard narrative, Justin Timberlake is another example of someone who was riding high, and then 2024 was just not their year. Everything I Thought It Was, I believe that's the name of the title of the album. Some of these album titles, can't keep them in the back of my head. I'll be honest, there's a couple songs on there that, I don't know, Man of the Woods just seemed so corny. I don't think anyone could really take it that seriously, even though he was trying to be sincere on some of the country tinged tracks. With the exception of Say Something, I don't think that album really had anything kind of like truly, hard on its sleeve. But I will say that, Selfish and Drown, which were the 2 big singles, are actually, for Justin Timberlake, quite self-reflective songs. They're not braggadocious. I feel like Justin Timberlake is, not being quite so look at me with this record. And I do appreciate that. He's a little bit more introspective on it. And there are, disco-tinged pop hook moments. Imagination, there's an NSYNC collab, which is like kind of beautiful, easy breezy melody, kind of ballad. But I actually kind of like Drown. I think Drown is probably the strongest on the record. And so I don't know. I think I'm going to put it in indifferent because they feel bad giving it too much accolades. Um, it certainly isn't the worst thing I've heard this year. Casey Musgraves, Deeper Well. Casey, I do think this album could use some improvement, but I still think, Casey Musgraves can't fail to a certain extent. I think that there's still so many gems. It's short and sweet in a lot of areas. I wish some of the songs were a little longer. And sometimes she takes the simplistic route melodically and lyrically. But there are some, folksy girl on a farm moments that just get me in the spirit. Jade Green. Shout out to Jade Green. Shout out to The Architect. There's some real gems, So I don't know though. It's tough because I think Yes and is a deserving category. But it would be on the low end of that. Kind of one of the reasons why I'm putting it here is because I don't feel like it's worse than Jess. So I feel like I might have to swap things around. Kali Uchis, Orquideus. Forgive me if I am mispronouncing. This was the first Kali Uchis project I sunk my teeth into. And I was really blown away. I mean, this is, Latin music that just enchants you. It's so enchanting. It's so humid and vibrant, colorful, eclectic in places. I love the more traditional, Latin music that comes through in Muévete, the closing song. Shout out to Te Mata, which is such a heartfelt, aching ballad. This is definitely going and bumping that. I think this is a really strong body of work for 2024. I just wish Te Mata came out in 2024 because that would have made my best songs of the year list, but it technically came out in 2023. We have Kelsey Ballerini, Patterns. I'm going to start going a little faster through some of these. Country, girl bops. It's, laid back kind of music. It's fine. I'm indifferent to it. Curly, my girl, came out with an EP this year that I feel like she's kind of forgotten about, just like a lot of people. Where are the visuals? It's tough. We did get 5 new songs. Well, technically 6. There's an intro. And it's a strong project. It's definitely going in yes and. But, as much as I love Curly, I would love to put it higher. But outside of Alchemize, there's nothing that's really sweeping me off my feet. But don't get me wrong, it's a strong project from her. She is pushing, the kind of production that really, I think, goes in interesting places for her. The instruments that are used are unexpected and quite, magnetizing, upon listening. Though sometimes her vocals in the mix get a little lost and I want them to come through more. But and I would like a little bit more balladry. It's a lot of up-tempo stuff. But I do hope we get some music videos, even if it's just one. We'll see. Kylie Minogue put out Tension 2. It's nice. It's different. We're gonna keep the Aussies together, shall we? Because Luke Hemmings and Kylie. It's no Tension 1. But I gotta be honest, my oh my, that is a BOP. Okay, that is a BOP with BB Rexa and Deaville. Maggie Rogers, I want to get into her. I want to, but something about her songwriting just doesn't. I'm talking about more of like the melodic construction, not necessarily the lyrical content. Something about the compositions don't lead me in easily, and I have a hard time, finding a hook, finding a melody line that stirs an emotion in me. But when it does hit. Don't Forget Me, the title track, is definitely the strongest on the project. It eats up the rest of the album whole. But on the whole, I'm fairly indifferent to this project. And then we have Megan Thee Stallion. She put out 2 albums, but they're really a side 1 and side 2. And I will actually probably not rank them together because I think Megan Part 1 is much stronger. I am going to put it in It's Nice, It's Different, It's Unusual. And then Megan 2, I am going to put in Needs Improvement. I just feel like Megan Part 1 has, Hiss and Cobra. Those are such, trailblazing, brave, impeccable rap hooks that, got the girls talking. Oh, Nicki Minaj. Nicki Minaj made such a fool of herself this year. Such a fool. We all kind of forgot about it, but we haven't. Nicki, we ain't forgetting, girl. We ain't forgetting the kind of depravity that came out of over a line that, it ain't looking good. It ain't looking good. Hiss is a triumph alone, but I think the album, Mamushi, Otaku Hot Girl, like there's some bops. Okay, Boa sampling the Gwen Stefani song. Completely forgot this came out. Artificial Paradise, is that what it's called? By One Republic. A couple decimal points above whatever Imagine Dragons is doing. I'll put it in Needs Improvement because, the One Republic has like a shred of self-respect, I think, with their music, but they really went downhill. It is so sad to see. So sad to see. Sabrina Carpenter, Short and Sweet, one of the other it girls of pop 2024. Controversial, but I don't know. I kind of feel like it's nice, it's different, it's unusual. I'm not that big a fan of the record. It's, Slim Pickens. Slim Pickens speaks to me on like a spiritual level. As a gay man trying to find a guy who's jacked and kind. It ain't easy. And, Espresso, we can't deny Espresso, but the other songs don't really do what they're doing for other gays. They're not doing it for me. Maybe I'm too old. I don't know. Rosie, this is Rosé, Blackpink, the front girl. She had her debut. I'm sorry, that song definitely gets, for better, for worse, best earworm of the year. Probably more for the worse because it is a silly song, but sometimes silly songs are fun, right? I'm going to put it in indifferent because I did go through the record and, there's actually a lot of ballads. She's on her way, she could do something. But I don't know. It feels like, so many of it is just retreading like other, like Avril did it better, like Avril Lavigne. I'm sorry, but I don't know. Rosie, there's potential. Las mujeres ya no lloran. Did I pronounce that right? Women no longer cry. Is that how it translates? Yeah, I don't know. Everyone hates J-Lo, and then Shakira is sort of like, on the other side of that coin. Everyone loves Shakira. And I've seen people more favorably talk about this record, but I gotta be honest, I don't know. I think part of the problem is we just heard so many of the songs years before it was released. I think that's the biggest thing that's holding this album back, and also why it just came and went so quickly. Because, Shakira was already done with the album cycle, long done by the time it came out. We got Puntaria and it was like over, because how many singles came out? Like 6 singles came out in the 2 years preceding this album release. And this album was overdue. It spent a little too long in the oven, honestly. And so, I don't know. It's tough. It's hard for me to put it much higher because of that. And so, I don't know. I actually think This Is Me Now might be a little bit more of a cohesive, I don't know. Might prefer it just slightly. There's definitely some bumps. Ultima is a, really beautiful Shaki ballad. Love my Shaki ballads. Tiempo Sin Verte is also a highlight because it's got a bit that rock 90s Shakira flavor. Shawn Mendes, my boy Shawn Mendes. Doesn't matter if you like boys or girls. What category are we putting you in? You know what? I'm going to put it in the yes and category. I know that's a little high. It's a little high. But I respect what Sean's doing on this record. I respect what he's doing. He could have gone the bro country route, but he went the Noah Kahan route. And I can't complain there because some of the melodies hit. It's definitely on the low end of Yes and, but I don't know. That might be a bit high. All right, let's wrap this up. Sia, Reasonable Woman. I don't know. Give Me Love is so infectious. That Labyrinth collab, Incredible, is pretty sick. And I also kind of like Little Wing. I don't know. It's nice. It's different. It's nice. It's different. SZA, Lana, boy, girl, this is where the deluxe mania needs to stop because this album came out 2 years ago and now you're putting out a deluxe. And it's like 15 new songs. It's got Saturn, which was released early at the year. Girl, what are we doing here? I don't know. It's a bit much. I'm going to be honest with you. The album just didn't really hit for me. There's only a handful of songs that, as I was skimming through, really perked my ears up. Kitchen, Saturn, obviously. I don't know. There's not very many songs. Maybe BMF. That's more of like the up-tempo pop hit. I'm not always. I like when SZA gets her melodies right, but then when it doesn't hit, it don't hit. Okay, and then we have the first half of the Tortured Poets department. Let's see. So I put the first part in Yes and. I think, in the interest of not dwelling on this too long, I'm so sorry, Swifties. I am so sorry. But I think it's probably going to go, and it's nice, it's different, but to consolate you, I'm putting it at the very top. I'm putting it at the very top. Actually, the title track has really grown on me. That I actually like that more than My Boy Only Breaks His Favorite Toys. But there are so many songs on the record that just don't do anything for me, particularly because of the production. Florida, again, Florida gives it points. Love of My Life, Loss of My Life, Clara Bow. Shout out to all those, but I don't know. I think the second half is just a little more interesting. Tyla's debut, it's nice, it's different. I respect what she's doing with it. It's not groundbreaking Afro pop music, but it certainly deserves its success. Needs improvement for sure. Coming Home by Usher. I think most people consider this a flop. It's a pretty corny record. It's a pretty corny. The men are just going so corny, aren't they? That's why I like Shawn Mendes' record, because you know who else I forgot to put on here? Jason Derulo. He put out an album this year for the first time in like a decade that had a song from 2017 on it, which I think is absolutely insane. New King, that's insane. That song came out in Swalla. That song came out, it's actually kind of a bop, but I wouldn't tell anyone that. Oops. But that song came out in 2017 and you're finally giving it an album in 2024. That's the like longest I've ever seen single to album release ever. Probably a Guinness Book of World Records there. I mean, he basically created a greatest hits of the last decade of songs he's put out. And then let us not forget our girl, the queen of pop that has been so under the radar lately, but decided to come back, Vanessa Williams. If you didn't know, she came out with a record called, is it Survivor? Yeah, Survivor. I'm sorry, I can't remember some of these. And let me just say, Legs Keep Dancing. That is such a good pick-me-up song. So, I think, important for her, at the stage she is in her life to make. It's frilly, silly pop, and she's better than that. Yeah, she is better than this kind of music, but at the same time, the kids need to hear it. The kids need to be reintroduced to a legend. But there's great jazz and piano and fun stuff. We got Trixie Mattel on this record on Bop. So yeah, it's nice, it's different, it's unusual. I like Moonlight. Pretty sensual, visceral moment on the seaside. It's a decent comeback for her. It's been 15 years since she put out a record. So I think Vanessa Williams was one of my, I think, wild card pleasant surprises of this year. I just completely thought she'd given up on music. and she came back. And I hope we have more of those in 2025. So here we are. I feel like this is pretty good. Notice that we only have 2 albums in the godly tier. To be honest with you, I actually would possibly make an argument for Eternal Sunshine to go up there as well. I really could, even though I kind of want godly to be an exclusive club. I could definitely make an argument to put Eternal Sunshine up there, because it is a strong record. Now, obviously, I'm not including any soundtracks, so Wicked doesn't count. I thought about putting the Wicked soundtrack in here, but it would also be a little unfair because that's a Broadway soundtrack that came out in 2003. It's like, it's not new material. But definitely loved Wicked. But yeah, I don't know. And these are all in good company. And then, I feel pretty good about, these projects. Yeah, I'm liking this. These are in no particular order within them, but I feel pretty good about where things landed. What would be in your godly tier? What are your tortured ears department albums of the year? I know I didn't cover everything. I know there were other albums I forgot to mention here. Maybe I'm just not familiar with the artist. I'm sorry. But as you can see, quite a lot of records came out. And I hope in 2025 we get more. I do think we're going to continue to see a lot of, everyone talks about how Katy Perry flopped with with Woman's World. No, with 123, 143. Can't even remember the title. It's that forgettable. But I'm going to be honest with you. Do you really think Kesha is going to have a great comeback in 2025? Like, I'm skeptical that album's really going to sell. Or even possibly be that critically acclaimed. I mean, I hope it's critically acclaimed. It definitely has a better chance to be. But everyone's sort of, just like Shakira is sort of meant to be sort of the flip side, the positive flip side of J-Lo, Kesha has now become the positive flip side of Katy Perry. And Kesha will put out a new album next year, but as this year proved, very few artists were able to, rise above it. Obviously Chappell Roan was big, but she didn't actually put out an album this year. So I definitely think Chappell Roan will be, hopefully, I don't think she's going to flop. I think it's certain artists are going to be doing good for a bit, and then the old guard is just retired. Well, they're not. I don't want them to retire. I don't want Nelly Furtado to pack it up. I don't want Shakira to pack it up. Even, I don't know, Justin Timberlake can pack it up. But, a lot of these, I hope we still get them coming back, even if they're not making the numbers they once did. Some of them haven't in decades, and that's fine. But everyone has their glory days, and then they kind of just make music for the fans, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I think this was the year of Cowboy Carter and Brat, Eternal Sunshine. These five records owned 2024 for me, and of course Aurora is my number one because it's just, I'm saying that as an Aurora stan, but also as me saying that this is like her second best album after her debut, possibly better than her debut. So what would your list be? I hope you enjoyed. Thank you all so much for watching. If you made it all the way through, please give it a like if you enjoyed, subscribe for more content. I'll see you all in my next video. I hope you all have a wonderful, happy holidays and happy new year. Peace, love, and light. Bye.